श्वेता से बात बिगड़ी क्यों?
I was one of those things here that she decided she was going to let go of and go to the US and look at that adventure.
It was said that Shama Sikander intruded into the relationship and you got attracted towards her. You don't send them a message sometimes?
I don't. I didn't grow up watching Akshay Kumar films. I didn't grow up watching Mohanlal films. So when I meet them, sure, I'm impressed with their persona. I'm impressed with their star power. But that doesn't really make me shiver, and it doesn't make me paralyzed.
What happened with Shama?
What happened with Shama? That's a good question.
There was a time when Shama mentioned that she was not keeping well and she had a tough time about her health.
Yeah.
Was that the period when you were with her?
Yes,
You said some people come late on the sets.
absolutely.
Who are
Some
they?
people think that they're superstars.
Hi, Alex, and welcome to the Vickey Lalwani show. You're looking fit and fine, so I'm not going
बहुत
to ask.
शुक्रिया विकी जी. Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. एक बहुत अच्छा program है आपके पास, और it is my pleasure to be here having this chat with you today. It's lovely to see you. I've been very much looking forward to having a conversation.
You were so much into these parties or dinners, going in and out of clubs. When you burst on the scene, and
Thank you for the reminder.
If you permit me to say, with Sweta Keswani.
It's true. Look, Sweta and I had an absolutely beautiful romance. We had a wonderful marriage. I think we both learned a lot from it. I'm very happy that she's gotten married again, and has a beautiful family. She now lives in the U.S. and she's worked with some incredible actors there. She's continued to act, and she's certainly found her own path overseas. Meanwhile, I've done a similar thing here. I wish her all the best, and sure, we were seen quite a lot, but I think it was mostly because we were a bit younger, we had a bit more energy, we used to party quite a bit. And we also participated in projects like Nach Baliye, which was a very social experience, where we had a number of other couples that we were competing against, and it really did become a community in a sense. And yeah, we used to all go out and party together. And it was a different time, Vicky. I think that now perhaps I've just become a little bit more focused.
तो फिर श्वेता से बात बिगड़ी क्यों? What happened?
We just Yeah, we grew in different directions. And look, this is something that happened a very, very long time ago. I think Sweta and I divorced in 2011, so this is quite some time ago. But yeah, it was really a matter of wanting different things at different points in our life. She really wanted to explore being outside of India, and I had fallen in love with India, and I think that was more or less the foundation of why we found ourselves going in different directions, quite literally. Her going west and me coming east more permanently. And look, I can't regret it. I'm thankful for the relationship. I'm thankful for all the things that I learned in that relationship. It really made me grow as an individual. And I only hope that she also looks back fondly on the relationship and the things that we went through together.
It was just that she wanted to go west and you wanted to remain in the east?
It's not even just that. It's a big thing. Look, if somebody has their heart set on not being in the place where they are, everything aligns in order to take them away from that place. One of the things that before we broke up that Sweta did, and I applaud her for this, but she went to New York while I was shooting in India. She went to New York and she did a class at Stella Adler School of Acting to improve her craft. She walked away from some excellent opportunities here in India to explore that adventure. So look, I was one of those things here that she decided she was going to let go of and go to the US and look at that adventure. And in a sense, it was absolutely something she needed to do in order to feel that she had explored the world the way that she wanted to. And I'm happy that she did. I think that we both ended up better for it.
Well, the buzz was something different, Alex, in those days. It was said,
tell me what the buzz was.
It was said that Shama Sikander intruded into the relationship and you got attracted towards her.
Well, I think that that's more unfair to Shama than anyone else. The interesting thing is that Shama and Sweta knew each other anyway, but it was quite some time after Sweta and I had been separated that Shama and I started dating. But once again, Shama was an absolutely wonderful person to be with as well, and I don't regret that relationship either. I feel like we're focusing a lot on my relationships in the past, but suffice it to say that I truly am thankful for having had both of those women in my life. Unfortunately, neither of them are in my life now, but I think that's more out of respect to the fact that we've moved on in our lives. You know, both of them have married, both of them have their own families now, and I'm extremely happy for them and all that they continue to do.
They have been very talented actresses. In fact, I myself am missing them right now on television and various other projects they can do. And that's the reason the conversation has drifted there.
Absolutely, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. I would say that look, there are things that Sweta is doing. I continue to see updates from her about the work that she's doing in New York. I look forward to seeing what she does next, and the same with Shama. I unfortunately don't know what Shama's been up to lately. I think she's not been doing as much promotion for her projects as would need be for me to be aware of them. Because unfortunately we're not in touch. So I really do hope that both of them are happy, and I really do wish the best for them, and I do look forward to seeing the projects that they make. I'm sure that they'll be beautiful.
You don't send them a message sometimes?
I don't.
Neither do they?
Neither do they. I think once again it's out of respect for their new lives. I don't think that their husbands would appreciate me sending their wives a message. Look, it's a time that was wonderful when it was, but it's now past. And yeah, we move on, we grow, and we create new eras for ourselves. And I'm very happy for both of them. And I don't necessarily want to intrude on this new era of their lives.
So you didn't feel inclined to meet Sweta when she was in Mumbai a month ago?
Sweta's been in Mumbai many times that I've also been in Mumbai. We've actually bumped into each other a couple of times while we were in Mumbai because we have common friends. And we've always been cordial. We've always given each other a hug, and, you know, we've wished each other the best. But like I said, that time was past, and so much has happened since then that we're not even really the same people that we were when we were married to each other. And since we've been out of touch for so long, we're more acquaintances than friends. And that's the way that relationships go, I suppose.
What happened with Shama?
What happened with Shama? That's a good question. You know, the funny thing is, I don't think I have thought about that in a very long time. Yeah, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. We were together for quite some time. I think at the end of that relationship, I needed to start traveling to the US more because, and this is something I haven't really talks about much, so it's exclusive on your show. But my mother suffers from dementia, and I needed to start committing more time to taking care of her and looking out for her. So if I was to pin it to something, I would say that the relationship fizzled out, and we both were called once again in different directions. Her husband actually was a friend of a friend. So we were still friends when she began dating who she went on to marry. But yeah, over time, again, we drifted apart. I guess this is just how relationships go. Unless there's a reason to stay close, people drift.
So are you saying that the relationship with Shama hadn't fizzled out when she started dating the other guy?
No, it had fizzled out. So we had broken up. We were friends, and actually, she met her current husband in a friend circle, and yeah, and they went on to date for quite a long time, and then now they're married.
Basically, you hadn't called it. You hadn't called it quits.
We had called it quits. Yeah, we had already broken up by that time. Okay. Yeah, I look back fondly on the time that we spent, but once again, it was a moment, and at one point the moment was over.
There was a time when Shama mentioned that she was not keeping well and she had a tough time
Mm.
about her health.
Yeah.
Was that the period when you were with her?
Yes, actually. I think that she has used her platform to talk quite a lot
Yes.
about mental health. So one of the things that, I'm not, I don't want to reveal any more than she has revealed. So I'll just reiterate what she said in my presence. That she was struggling with mental health. That I did. When I was younger in university, I studied psychology and philosophy, and I think I was able to help in some way to make her aware of the fact that she needed to get help, and she did. And I think that it's turned her into a champion of mental health in a way, especially at a time when very few people were talking about it. And I think subsequently, a lot of people have, from Deepika Padukone to so many others, have talked about depression and talked about the importance of mental health. But I really do laud her for having brought her own personal story out and talked about her struggles with mental health. It's a very courageous thing for her to have done, and I'm happy that I could have been at least a small part of helping her prioritize her mental health. But yeah, that was towards the end of our relationship when she realized that that was a struggle that she needed to undertake.
Was the problem with her health one of the reasons why a certain amount of incompatibility set in between you and her?
I don't know. Look, I think when someone prioritizes their mental health, it's such an important thing that a lot of other things need to take a back seat. And so sure, perhaps it could have led to us spending less time together. Sure, it could have led to, her putting more focus on herself and her mental health. And that's a good thing. I think that's important. I think, first and foremost, we need to be happy with ourselves before we can be happy with someone else. So yeah, perhaps that was one contributing thing, but I think it's difficult to pin down any one individual thing for any breakup. It is a number of things that just kind of lead you to realize that you're two people that are heading in different directions.
No, my question was that before she started putting focus on her mental health, that struggle period, was that one of the reasons which led to incompatibility? And perhaps you were at that moment not aware of what is happening. And then there's a conflict, there's a argument, which is sometimes irrational.
Yeah, look, at all relationships at some level are irrational. Everybody argues, everybody fights, but I wouldn't say that her struggle with mental health made us incompatible. I just think that that was something that she needed to address and work through, and she has. And not only has she done it, but she's done it in such a public way that it's, I think, given voice to other folks to be able to say, well, look, I also want to see a psychiatrist. I also want to talk to a mental health specialist. So I don't think that her struggle with mental health made us incompatible. I don't think that anyone's struggle with mental health means that they lose compatibility with their partner. But yeah, it certainly is something that we all need to focus on, is making sure that we are happy in and of ourselves before we can be happy with a partner.
You bump into Shweta on a couple of occasions. If you bump into Shama, will you talk to her?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Give her a hug as you do to Shweta?
Absolutely. I would give her a huge hug. I would catch up with her about what's been happening in her life. I would wish her well, and I would move on. Look, I am a very strange individual in the sense that I am grateful for even some of the most difficult times in my life, because I come out of those experiences with perspective. And I came out of relationships with Sweta and with Shama a better person. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to them for having put up with me. I'm thankful to them for such wonderful times that we had together.
तो अभी Alex क्या program है? Are you sending your portfolios to casting directors? Are you ringing up producers and directors?
I should be. I should be, Vicky. But what I think you know that the way the industry works is it's all who you know and the impression that you left them with last. Every one of the films that I have releasing in the next 6 weeks can be traced back to a previous film, whether it's the same DOP that I worked with, or for example, Lucifer 2 Empuran is the second installment of Prithvi Raj's epic film Lucifer. But Prithvi and I worked together on Urmi, Santosh Shivan's Urmi, way back a long time ago with Vidya Balan, Prabhudeva, Prithviraj, a cast that was just par excellence. So Lucifer 2 is kind of a product of having worked with Prithvi prior. Phule is with Anant Mahadevan as a director. Phule is the second film I've done with Anant. We did Dr. Rahmabai previously. Kesari 2 with Akshay Kumar. Akshay and I did Joker many, many years ago. And just having worked with Dharmatic, I think I was on Dharma's radar. And then finally, Devi Chowdharani is I think my sixth Bengali film. And the first one in which I speak primarily Bengali, about 80% Bengali. So that was a huge challenge. But once again, it was working with a team that was familiar with my work from my previous projects, and working once again with Prasenjit Chatterjee, with whom I did my debut, Ethiopi John, in Bengali many, many years ago. So it's really just a function, not so much for me of calling up casting directors and so on, but really just essentially reminding people that, yeah, I'm doing work. Yeah, I'm keen to be a part of interesting projects. And by the grace of God, people continue to think of me and shoot me a message. And then here we are making movies.
You're getting work, touch wood.
I'm very lucky, Vicky. I often tell people that it's been quite a lot of hard work, a bit of serendipity, and mostly luck. And I'm grateful for it every day. This is an adventure that I think many people dream of and few get to live. And I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude that I get to do it. And I'm overwhelmed with gratitude that I get to be a part of such important cinema. I mean, Kesari 2 is truly exceptional. Phule, Kesari, I'm sure you know about. It's about the Amritsar massacre and the surrounding events. Phule is a much more modest film, if I may put it that way, which is about Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule, who were pioneers for girls' education in India. So, films like this are really important, and to be able to be a part of telling those stories is really a privilege. One of the cool things about this industry, and I think you know this as well as anyone, Vicky, is that oftentimes now you'll arrive on a set after having been in this industry for 20 years or so. You'll arrive on a set and you'll know 5 or 10 of those 50 people on the set. And it's like a reunion. These aren't necessarily people that you go out and you meet every day. You don't necessarily go on vacation with them. But they're the kinds of friends that you really enjoy catching up with and working with again and making something with. I mean, there's something beautiful about meeting up. Like for me, meeting Akshay again, shaking his hand, giving him a hug, catching up on all the things that we've been doing in the years in between our two films, and then making a film together. I mean, how cool is that? It's really a different kind of relationship. And I would say it's kind of akin to having an office friend, having a colleague that you really, really enjoy working with at the office, that you are engaged in doing projects with. It's not so much different from that, except that it's really creative. And I think you forge a bond with people making something creative that doesn't just go away. So every time you meet, it's like the last time you met was yesterday, but you have so much to catch up on. So Kesari was both a lot of firsts, but also a lot of meeting old friends and reconnecting after years.
What did you think of Akshay when you met him after so many years?
He hasn't changed at all. He looks exactly the same. I need to get his trainer because he looks in better shape than he did back when we did Joker. No, I think that he's a superstar. He's an excellent actor. He's a great scene partner. One of the things that I like about Akshay, one of the things that I like most about shooting Joker with Akshay is that because it was a comedy, there was a lot of space for us to play around and to do every shot different, every scene different, every moment different. Kesari 2 is obviously a much more serious film, but I still really enjoy how you never really know what Akshay's going to do. You may do something in rehearsal, but he may do something entirely different. He may, it could be as simple as in rehearsal, he turns to his left to face you. In the shot, he'll turn to his right. It's not that it changes anything significantly, but it keeps you on your toes. It means that you need to really be in the moment in order to perform to the best of your ability. And I like that, because having come from 10 years of theater, that's just the way it goes every night when you're performing on stage. You never really know what's going to happen. As much as you want to do it the same every night, it doesn't end up that way.
Evolution as an actor, did you see any difference in him while performing a scene than what you saw him in Joker?
No, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I also perhaps wasn't looking for it. But yeah, no, like I said a moment ago, I almost felt like the last time we met was yesterday, but all these years had passed. Hopefully you'll ask him the same question and he'll say, yes, Alex has improved a lot as an actor. But yeah, but my focus wasn't on assessing whether he'd improved or changed. My focus was on making sure that I was doing the best that I possibly could in the scenes in which I was sharing frames with him.
I'm enjoying the honesty, if I can say that. The way you're going about the answers, and I'm not getting to hear the same rehearsed answers, which I often get in a plethora of interviews.
Look, if we're not going to be honest, then what's the point? And I think that a long time ago, I stopped telling people what they want to hear, and I still got work. So I figure it's working well for me. But yeah, look, I enjoy working with Akshay, just like I've enjoyed working with Mohanlal and Prithviraj and Prasenjit Chatterjee and all the folks that I've had the opportunity to work with on these upcoming 4 films and beyond. There's so many more other projects that we can also talk about, but yeah, I really meet them less as superstars that I need to impress and more as scene partners and actors. Because to me, that's what they are. I didn't grow up watching Akshay Kumar films. I didn't grow up watching Mohanlal films. So when I meet them, sure, I'm impressed with their persona. I'm impressed with their star power. But that doesn't really make me shiver, and it doesn't make me paralyzed. It doesn't make me weak in the knees. It doesn't make me lose focus on my job. And I think that to me, that's really a benefit. It's kind of my superpower, working with the biggest stars from, even my debut with Amitabh Bachchan. Sure, he's a huge star, but for me, he was my scene partner. And it's a little bit of a different perspective that I have.
You spoke about Joker. Honesty personified, Alex. Please dissect what went wrong in that film. There were so many expectations.
You honestly personify? You really want me to be completely honest? I think that the audience had a difficult time figuring out who was the hero and who was the villain. Obviously, if you look at the cast, Akshay is the hero, Alex is the villain, right? But Akshay is the one who's pulling these shenanigans, being dishonest. He's the one who's basically being a fraud, whereas my character is essentially trying to figure out the mess. And in the midst of all of that, you had the aliens jumping around, the colors. You had some songs that were interesting, to say the least. But I think that it just confused the audience a bit. But I'll tell you something. This is funny. My friends' kids love Joker. They love it because it doesn't really have like a linear, a common sense that binds it together. Every couple of minutes, there's color, there's aliens, there's songs, there's dancing. It's just chaos, and kids love it. And so I'm so happy that and all of my films are available on all these streaming platforms. The rise of OTT has meant that audiences can find their film. So if you don't like Joker, don't watch it. But if somebody does, they can find it, and that's so cool. And yeah, I always find it hilarious that kids just love that film, while adults are like, it didn't make sense. Maybe us adults are missing something. But truly, if I was to be very honest, I think that was the core problem, was that it wasn't very well defined who the audience is supposed to be rooting for, and so it just didn't do as well in people's hearts and minds and imaginations than we had hoped.
Are you someone who gets an intuition? Are you someone who gets a gut feeling that when you saw Joker as it released, or maybe before it released,
Mhm.
did you expect that it will bomb?
No, look, I think that when you're part of a project, you're too close to it. Uh, you start focusing on the minutia of it. In the dub, walk this way rather than walk this way rather than walk this way. Like you're focused on that kind of minutia that the big picture is very hard to see. And I think it is genius to be able to focus on the minutia and also focus on the big picture. And I don't think a lot of people can do that. I think that's why you have superstar directors that just have hit after hit after hit, because they can do that. They can focus on the tiniest of the tiny, and they can also focus on the big picture. I'm someone who gets lost in the minutia. I get too close to a project, and then I think I don't know whether it's going to do well. This is one of the reasons why, as a musician, I focus on a single at a time. I don't do albums. I focus on one single at a time. If I was to try to do a 8-song album, I would never finish it, because I'd finish the 8th song, I'd go back to the first and try to get it better, and go to the second, try to get better. By the time I get to the 8th again, I'll find problems with the first. So I guess that's perfectionism. I guess it's also just obsession. But at the end of the day, someone like me watching something that I've been a part of, I feel too close to really judge whether it's going to do well. Obviously, I have all the hope in the world that it will. And I also expect that it will, because how can people not appreciate something that you've put all your hard work and time and soul and passion into? How can people not appreciate it, right? That's what you're thinking. But the fact of the matter is, in all honesty, artists are too close to their art to be able to truly judge it critically.
So I understand postmortems are only after the dust has settled. You have worked with Akshay Kumar, you have worked with Mohanlal, you have worked with Mr. Bachchan. What are the differences? What are the similarities? Anything peculiar that stands out?
Well, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they are extremely professional. Look, you can go on a film set and just sit back in a corner of the room and see who's doing what, observe who's there on time, who knows their dialogues, who has ideas for how to shoot the scene, who's offering suggestions. And those are the folks that are going to have long careers. They may become superstars, or they may just be actors that have a lot of great films coming out over time. The folks that lose their temper, the folks that are late, the folks that aren't prepared, the folks that don't have a foundation in acting, like theater, for example, or having studied acting, those folks have a harder time sustaining a career. And as I said a moment ago, one of my superpowers is being able to walk on a set with the biggest stars of India and not be starstruck. What that also means is that I can walk on and I can look at them as scene partners, and I can appreciate them for the actors that they are. One of these things that you mentioned, Amitabh Bachchan. One of the things that I learned from Amitabh in the film Chinikam, which was my first introduction to a big Bollywood. I had done films before and obviously many films since, but that was the first real big budget project that I worked on. A big star, big cast, big production. And I obviously gave my cues to Mr. Bachchan with the camera over my shoulder. And when the camera swung around, Mr. Bachchan gave his cues to me. He wasn't in the frame. That's the kind of professionalism that leads to a long and successful career. He could have just said, have an AD come here. He could have said, yeah, just let him act to the cutter, or let him act to a tennis ball, or whatever. No, he gave the cues, despite the fact that he wasn't even in the frame. So these are the kinds of things that you see from an R. Madhavan, you see it from a Mohanlal, you see it from a Prithviraj, you see it from these actors who a lot of people regard as stars. But to me, the reason why they're stars is because they're professional, they're talented, they're skilled, and they know their job.
You said some people come late on the sets.
Absolutely.
Who are they?
Some people think that they're superstars,
Who are
and they hold up the entire production. Off the top of my head, if I'm trying to make enemies, okay, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anyone right now, but there are people. Most of the time, it's not the people you've heard of, because they don't have a very long career ahead of them. Professionalism is key. I'm not going to call anyone out for lack of it. But I'll just reiterate that it is one of the factors that I see across the truly great actors that I have had the privilege of working with. I was going to destroy my relationship with one actor or the other. It's just kind of one of those truisms of filmmaking that you prioritize other people's time because time is extremely expensive in filmmaking. Depending on the kind of film you're shooting, 1 minute can cost tens of thousands of rupees, hundreds of thousands of rupees for just 1 minute. You don't want to be the one wasting those minutes.
We conclude with those words of wisdom from you. And I bet you don't have any complaint at the end of it that this interview was focusing on Sweta Keswani and Shama Sikander.
I'm always happy to talk about them. I'm always happy to wish them well through whatever medium I can, because I'm very grateful to have had both of them in my life. But I'm also very excited to be talking about so many amazing films that I've had the privilege of being part of. And thank you so much, Vicky, for your questions about the films, for your questions about my co-actors. I really appreciate the chat.